Is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey a thought or a trick? If you have to choose one, is it a trick or a thought? In the context of the film itself, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey leans heavily into both concepts, using the nature of storytelling to blur the line between a thought, an exploration of memory, consequence, and human psychology, and a trick, deception, cleverness, and narrative sleight of hand. The film treats Odysseus not just as a weary soldier, but fundamentally as a trickster hero, the master of the Trojan Horse whose entire survival relies on cunning, disguises, and manipulating truths. Nolan's nonlinear narrative structure treats time and memory like a map, forcing the audience to constantly question what is real, what is a divine illusion, such as the interventions of gods like Athena, and what is a psychological projection of a man desperate to return home. Ultimately, rather than being just a straightforward blockbuster action epic, the movie frames storytelling itself as the ultimate trick that makes us think. If I have to choose one, it is a trick. At its core, the film uses the mechanics of grand illusion, nonlinear time, shifting perspectives, and unreliable narrators to hook the audience, only to force a deep, lingering thought about survival, memory, and deception long after the credits roll.
A thought that becomes a trick, and the film forces you to sit with the difference. In Nolan's The Odyssey, the 2026 film starring Matt Damon as Odysseus, the phrase appears early via the bard, Travis Scott, recounting the fall of Troy. A man, a thought, a trick to break the walls of Troy and burn it screaming to the ground. It refers to the Trojan Horse, the defining act of Odysseus's cleverness. Homer's Odysseus is Polymetis, the man of many turns, the wily one. The horse is the ultimate expression of that quality, an ingenious solution born of necessity and intellect. Nolan keeps the ingenuity but weights it with moral consequence. The horse is presented as a violation of Xenia, Zeus's law of hospitality, a gift that is actually an act of infiltration and slaughter. Characters and the film itself treat it as the original sin that shadows Odysseus's entire journey home, the clever idea that worked and that also helped usher in darkness. Nolan has spent a career making films that are both thoughts and tricks. Memento's structure, The Prestige's nested deceptions, Inception's dream architecture, Tenet temporal mechanics. The Odyssey is the purest version of that impulse applied to the oldest Western story about a man whose defining trait is cunning. The non-linear intercutting, the practical IMAX scale, the grounded treatment of gods and monsters, the focus on family and guilt, these are thoughtful, personal, and structurally elaborate. They are also, in classic Nolan fashion, a kind of sleight of hand, an ancient oral epic turned into a $250 million modern blockbuster that still feels like one continuous, immersive experience. If forced to choose one, it is a thought. The horse begins as thought, strategy, problem-solving, the application of intellect to an impossible situation. The trick is the secondary form it takes when executed, and the moral residue it leaves. Nolan's film is more interested in the cost of that thought than in celebrating the deception itself. Odysseus, and by extension the movie, is haunted less by the fact that he tricked Troy than by what the success of the idea required and what it unleashed. That is the Nolan register. Not look how clever the trick is, but look what the clever idea did to the man who had it and to everyone else. A pure trick would be emptier. This one keeps thinking after the walls fall.
If I have to choose one, thought. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey feels more like a thought disguised as a spectacle than a trick. A trick would mean the mystery, star-casting, secrecy and marketing are primarily there to manipulate the audience into seeing something surprising. Nolan certainly uses those tools, but they're usually in service of a larger idea. With The Odyssey, the central thought is essentially, open quote, what does it mean to go home after a journey that has fundamentally changed you? Close quote, that is very Nolan. Memento, Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet and Oppenheimer all use large cinematic mechanisms to explore an underlying conceptual question, and The Odyssey itself is almost perfect material for that approach. The monsters and islands can be spectacular, but underneath them are questions about identity, memory, time, temptation, loss, guilt, and whether home can still be home after becoming someone else. So I'd put it this way. The trick is the presentation. The thought is the movie. And if Nolan is doing something particularly Nolan-esque, the audience may initially think they're trying to figure out what is the trick, when the more important question is, what is he actually trying to make us think about?